Hello, welcome to part B with Rohan. This is Typology Gifts. If you're just joining us, there is a part A that you should go back and watch, so please go watch part A. That way you'll have the context of this conversation. So I was on my break, I was thinking about questions to ask, and kind of came up with a few, but I probably forgot them on my way over here, so I have to find them again in my head.
Yeah, take your time.
um, it's not a great way to start off a video, right? I mean, I should be able to just jump right in. But I guess those who watch my channel know that it's probably more of a slow burn than it is a exciting, action-packed kind of channel. Um, so, damn it, what was I gonna ask you? I completely forgot. Are you familiar with the doorway effect? Do you know what the doorway effect is?
Yeah, probably a heavy set of yes,
Yeah,
probably one of those
it's
things, or probably just it's suburban.
it's what?
I said probably it's suburban.
Oh no, it's not the bourbon. I have my bourbon here. Oh no, it's this phenomenon where if you walk through a doorway, you forget what you were thinking about.
You forget all this.
Yeah,
And yeah, I am aware of the
you're
doorway
you're aware of that
phenomenon. I
one.
was just getting about the bourbon.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah. So now I have to think about what I was thinking about when I was
tend
pouring
to
it.
happen with me too.
Oh, it does happen to you too. Yeah.
Yeah, I can.
um.
Yeah, I can understand.
Oh, what's your experience with like daydreaming?
Uh, Well, this is also something which uh, I I have a love and hate relationship with it because I I, I tend to daydream a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I usually not I do not, again, like I said, I hate wasting time, so I hate the daydreaming part about the part of it. But then I'm usually dreaming about a very interesting thing, so I just sort of uh, prefer daydreaming at that particular time. Like okay, I'm thinking about something. I'm zoned out right now. I don't want to think of anything productive or anything. So sort of that way. So once I've just done with my thinking, then I can get back to whatever I was doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Um, when you're daydreaming, well, no matter what I ask there, I don't know if I'm going to get anywhere where I want to go with that question. So there was one other question I was going to ask you, but I have completely lost it. Um, I think it was involved. I think it involved other people somehow. Uh,
Mm.
do other people think that you are uh, too insensitive?
Yeah, I don't know why they think of me like that, but yeah, they
Mm-hmm.
do think that. Yeah, oftentimes they do think that I'm sort of insensitive, but I'm not really. I do take care of, I do try not to be insensitive.
Mm-hmm. Do you think that which of these cases seems more like you? Do you think that you are more like the same person all the time in any given situation, or do you think that you adapt your behavior more to fit the, let's say, emotional color of the situation?
Um, I'm usually the same. Like there are definitely times where I see myself changing characters, but very rarely.
Hmm.
But usually I'm the same.
Okay. Okay, I think I have an idea of what my theory is for what type I think you might be. Um, but how familiar are you with the whole cognitive function stuff? Have you looked into that at all?
Yeah, I've read about cognitive functions. I've read about some theories. Uh, I don't really remember.
Okay. Um, so I'll try to give explanations of the cognitive functions that I'm observing and like you know as I mention it. Um, so
Yeah.
uh, so let's see. There are a few things that you mentioned that are unique to certain types by my observation. One, having a number of strongly held beliefs and sort of having a truth-centric point of view is often a sign of higher either introverted intuition or introverted sensing, higher use of one of those two, uh, but in different ways. Um, and also sort of a trouble with authority to me implies introverted intuition. A difficulty, a sort of resistance against authority to a degree, um, and strong individualism uh, is what kind of ends up resulting. Um, the ability to as sort of read other people really well, or read situations really well, is also kind of a thing that people that use a lot of introverted intuition uh, tend to be able to do. Um, and poor memory, honestly, is kind of people that have a not as good of a working memory tend to have to compensate for that in other ways. So they will develop this really strong sixth sense to be able to intuit what is happening right now, or what am I supposed to be doing, or what's going on right now, because I can't remember necessarily what was just going on, but I can take in what's happening right now, and
Formulate.
I can draw some very strong conclusions about what's happening right now. And that's NISE. That's introverted intuition, extroverted sensing. So people
Mm-hmm.
who are prefer introverted intuition, extroverted sensing, do tend to be um, more in tune with their physical senses in that moment. But people who prefer introverted intuition at the highest degree will often find themselves. My observation from knowing a lot of people like this and being like this myself is that they fatigue very quickly because they are not using their senses as much. And so when they do, it's very fatiguing. And so they become energy conservationists, and they use their intuition to evaluate whether the energy expenditure is worth it. So
Makes sense.
following
Yeah.
following along with me so far, as far as like, well, that's just what I'm observing from what from what you've told me. Um, so
Yeah.
my theory would be that you probably prefer and find it easy to use a lot of introverted intuition, and this would be why you can learn a lot of different things very very quickly and easily, and a lot of different fields. Of course, people who prefer introverted intuition love to read a lot too. They're kind of information sponges. Um, and And I mean, it's not like any one of those things that I mentioned are exclusive to people of that type, but when you take all of those things and put them into the same basket, then some kind of picture starts to emerge. Um, Introverted intuitives also
Right.
do a lot of daydreaming. Honestly, they tend to be kind of lost in their own heads. And what are they doing? What
Uh,
are they doing in there? Who knows? You know what I mean?
yeah. So isn't the same thing applies to extroverted intuition?
No, extroverted intuition needs is outward focused, and it's not to say that extroverted intuitives don't daydream, but um, they need a steady supply of external information to build upon for using their intuition, and they also tend to be much higher energy people, um, because they are externalizing their
Oh,
intuition. So the intuition is all out here, it's all around them, it's everywhere, and it's not that they're not in their own heads in that it's not that they're never in their own
okay.
heads, but it's a type of intuition that's focused outwardly, um, not in the physical sense. That's the unusual thing. It's sort of like it's not the same as extroverted sensing, where you're using your senses as much as it is. Um, the way I would say it is this: people who use a lot of extroverted intuition are very good at improvisation, because they like to have a prompt to build on, to take it to the next place, and then they want to take it to the next place, and then they want to take it to the next place, and they want to keep building on it like that. Whereas somebody who is preferring a lot of introverted intuition can do all of
Right.
that in their own head without any external prompt. You're frozen on my end, so
Mhm.
can you still hear me?
Oh, I'm still frozen.
Ah, I think we're waiting for it to unfreeze here.
Noise in your
Ah, there we are. I can see you.
computer.
Yep, I can see you again.
Okay.
So I don't know what you heard or where you might have lost me.
No, I heard you perfectly.
Okay.
Yeah.
Um, did was I did I explain extroverted intuition in a confusing way, or did it make sense?
No, it made sense. It's just extroverted, and the thing about improv made sense. Like I can just as the way I can see it. Like I know certain people who are really good at improv,
Mm-hmm.
and being a position. So I'm currently studying law for being a lawyer, and
Mm-hmm.
law is also a field where you kind of require improvisation. So that is something which I find it very difficulty with, and some people are just very natural
Right.
with it. So yeah, well, I can now I can see the reason why, but yeah, I didn't read it that way. Like I read about extroverted intuition, but I just did not read it that way. That they're very good at improvising.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So
And
this
the
is
other thing
something
is,
new knowledge.
yeah, and the other thing is, people that prefer to use extroverted intuition have a pretty good um, connection to their personal narrative. So they may or may not have a good memory.
Uh,
That depends, but they're using introverted sensing uh, to their the reason that they can figure out where to go so quickly when it comes to improvisation is because they have a strong sense of their own senses of what they've seen and what they've heard and what they've experienced. They've got a good strong backlog of all that data,
Yeah.
so
Good
they can
database.
use that to just come up with all kinds of new stuff.
Oh, yeah.
Whereas the introverted intuitives kind of just show up. You know, it's like I'm in this fresh moment. What's going on right now?
Mm-hmm.
And so you look around and observe what's in this moment right now, and you intuit then, oh, you know, you might lose
Mm-hmm.
track of the conversation, and then you just intuit, oh well we were supposed to be here in this conversation. So it's more of a sense of directionality, not based on past precedent, but based on present situation, present scenario. So because of
Right.
that, it's a more it's less fluid. It's more there's a bit of wind up that has to happen to get there, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense. So
Yeah.
so that was the first thing that I observed just from talking to you. That was the first thing that caught me when we started talking. Um, I guess a few other things that you mentioned is though you feel like you understand people better than they understand you, uh, um, I don't know where I was going with that sentence actually. I had somewhere I was going with that. You mentioned that you understand your own feelings pretty well, um, as well as other people's feelings, um, and also you have a kind of a strong preference for efficiency and for not wasting time, uh, and uh, and you see yourself as more lazy than you probably are, um, because you probably account in your
Mm-hmm.
head. You probably end up intuitively accounting for your time. You probably think, even if you don't have the exact numbers, you probably think, I probably spend way too much time doing nothing or whatever. Um,
Uh,
am I right on that? Or
yeah, that's right. Yes.
yeah. So uh, let's see. What else can I say? Uh, you said that you are not very sensitive, and that others might perceive you as not as sensitive. Um, so and also kind of pretty consistent, kind of as you are in different situations. You're in different interpersonal situations, pretty consistent across the board, despite the kind of emotional color of the room. So these to me are kinds of signs of introverted feeling, which means you have a more of a grasp of your own sense of values and feelings than and you may have a grasp of other people's feelings, but you're you're not necessarily going to alter your own emotional color for other people just because they're feeling a certain way or something like that. Does that sound right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, so based on that, do you think you have an idea of what type I might think you are?
INTJ.
And did you, what type or types did you come in potentially kind of thinking you might be?
Well, most of the
Sorry, it's cutting up. It's cutting out.
MBTI test they ask.
I'm sorry, it's cutting out really bad. Let's see.
Am I audible now?
Yes. Let's. Why don't you turn off video for a little bit and let's see if the audio gets better.
No, I now just a sec. Let me
We'll give Rohan a little bit of time to get do what he's doing. He might be refreshing. While he's doing that, friends at home, what did you think? Leave a comment below as to whether you agree or disagree with my assessment. Hope your evening is going well, friends at home. Thanks for joining us. We will. Hello, hello. Welcome.
really sorry about that.
No
Am
worries.
I audible right?
No worries. Welcome back. So I
Yeah.
might have missed. I might have missed. I think you said that you caught what type I thought you might be, and I think I asked what type or types you might have come in thinking that you were. So I'd love to hear. I'd love to hear more about that.
Yeah, yeah. So uh, when I gave the MBTI test, so it did come INTJ, and it was pretty relatable. But there were two things which I sort of had a hard time agreeing with. Was one was that they are very organized, and I personally don't see myself. Being very organized. Like I'm organized with things which I use very often, like for
Mhm.
example my apps and my books and just my desktop and my
Mhm.
computer. But rest of the things in my environment is completely mess.
Right.
And it could be usually because of probably my family. My family is like absolute mess, and yeah, so I might be just gotten used to it. So I do not like math. I want to organize all these things, but I don't
Mhm.
know where all these things go.
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
and also I would prefer someone else to organize for me, and I
Right.
can just tell them that
Right.
yeah.
Right. Right.
So
Yeah.
so organization. So organization was one thing which I just was like, okay, this isn't me.
Mhm.
And the next thing was again productivity, which they when I read they seem very productive, and
Mhm.
yeah, I think that I can probably do much more on that part.
Mhm. So both of those things to me, those sound like inferior extroverted sensing problems that INFJs and INTJs both share those problems that you're describing. Um, it's sort of
Okay.
I like to describe it as like you see a train that's coming and you're supposed to get on the other side of the tracks because you're going to get on that train, but you see it and it's coming and it's coming and you know it's going to get there. You know it's going to get there. You know it's going to get there, and then it
You miss
gets
it.
there, and you didn't go across the tracks, and now just have to just stare at this train that you know is going to leave, and there's no way you can't get over that train. You just have to stand there and wait, and then it leaves,
Yeah.
and that's
Yeah.
in, that's how it feels to have to be in that inferior extroverted sensing spot, which is I know I must act, I know I must do this, but I can't for some reason. Um,
That's a really good analogy.
yeah,
Yeah,
and
I can probably relate to it
and that's why
pretty well.
you might say, well, I don't think I'm as organized as the stereotype is because you know organization is both the knowledge of how to organize, but it's also the ability to, or the energy, or the power to actually do it. And that's the hard part for NI dominant people is having, because INFJs and INTJs are energy conservationists. They want to use as little energy as possible to do it as much as possible. So
Yeah.
they, as a
Okay.
consequence,
Uh,
may
yeah,
end up
that
just
makes sense.
doing nothing, because
Yeah.
you think, well, I can. You don't think this consciously, but I think you say I can do the most possible in my own head, and then because that requires no physical movement whatsoever, and then I will so efficiently figure out what I'm supposed to do that I will do only that thing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. That makes sense. Yeah.
So it's like if getting organized requires you to do 100 different things, but maybe there's some part of your mind that says maybe 50% of that isn't necessary. But I don't know what
Mm-hmm.
50% it is. So maybe I just need to wait until it hits me and then I realize, oh, okay, I realize the 50% that's not necessary. Now I don't have to do that other 50%. You see, so what can end up happening
Yeah. Yeah.
is you can procrastinate because you're watching the train leave the station, basically.
Yeah.
Not because you like to procrastinate, and not because you. Uh, I struggle with the same thing. It's hard to. I have to build systems for myself. I'm an INFJ, so I mean I have to come up with ways to sort of trick myself into acting because I will oftentimes not have the the willpower to move my body to the degree that I need
So how
to
do you
do the
trick yourself?
dishes or what. What's it?
Yeah. I was asking, how do you trick yourself? And especially when you said for the dishes,
Yeah,
I would absolutely
I
need
I
tips
struggle
for
with
that.
the dishes and the laundry and washing my bedding and anything that requires maintenance. I'm very bad at that. I'm very bad at maintaining things.
Oh.
It has to break. It has to break in a catastrophic way for me to go fix it. Um, I've had to figure out. Let's just say this: I'm almost 40, and I spent more than half of my life struggling with this before I spent 2/3 of my life or more not having this figured out because I didn't really know, and I still kind of don't, but I'm doing a lot better with it. And a few of the things I can recommend that just practical things that I figured out. One is live and die by the calendar. You have to, like set up all your calendar events, set up recurring
Mm-hmm.
events. Just have that foresight to go, I know I'm going to have to do this, this, and this. Set it up, and then of course you're going to forget about it. So set it up, forget
Mm-hmm.
about it, and then let it come to you because that inferior extroverted sensing, there has to be like something that gets your attention and then you're like in that moment and you're like, oh, I have an event, I have to do this thing. So sometimes I'll set like an event before the event because I know I have to do, I'll work my way backwards and I'll say, okay, I've got an hour and a half before this, so I'll set the timer for that, and you know what I mean. So I'm trying to think my way through,
Yeah. Mental preparation.
yeah, preparing. I also get a lot of information out of my head and into like spreadsheets, and you make charts, I make charts. I make a lot of charts even on my own, just for my own use, and that helps too because I'm a visual thinker. I have to see my ideas, and I like to if I can get it in a visual way. It's in a way it almost feels like it makes it more effortless to think about it and um, to manage it.
Yeah.
If it's not in a visual format, it might be harder to. It might seem like more effort somehow. Um,
All right.
and it's all about getting it to be less effort, right? The other thing is I hire people to do stuff sometimes. I hire a cleaner to
Uh-huh.
clean my place sometimes. There's no shame in that. If you have to
No,
do
that is
that,
enough.
do
Yeah.
that. And even if it costs you, even if you're not rich, but you
Mm.
can get the money together to have somebody come
Saves
in and
their time.
clean your place or something like that, you're still managing it, which is the important part. It's still managed, even if you had someone else to do it. You had to go and earn that money some other way to pay that person to do the thing you needed. So, um,
Mhm.
so bringing other people into the mix is a good way to deal with that inferior extroverted sensing, because you can't do it all yourself. So you need to rely on other people and figure out what parts of your life. And then the other thing I was just mentioned is the word automation. You have to automate things in your life. You have to figure out, if you can. You mentioned that you can write software even if you're not a pro or whatever, but maybe you don't have to write software. Maybe you can do it with pre-existing software. But the point
Mhm.
is, maybe, because if your strong point is going to be research and learning, maybe the thing that you're trying to manage in your own life can be solved through learning. Like maybe you can learn about what tool you need to use, or what service you need to buy, or whatever, to offload that part of your life into that automated solution. And then you can feel comfortable because you say, well, that's managed. I don't have to expend energy. Maybe I have to throw a little bit of money at it every month, but the point is I don't have to put any of my own physical energy towards
Right.
whatever that thing is that you have to maintain.
Mhm. Um, well, so the other thing which, again, so organized, and this was the problem. The other personality which I could sort of relate with was, again, INFJ.
Yeah, that was, for me, it
I
was down to those two actually.
So my mom's, I think my mom's an INFJ.
Mhm.
And she is actually into the aura and healing things
Mhm.
too. Aside from that, the only thing which I probably find difference between us is um, she is really really sensitive. Like I would say something like
Yeah.
she food for me, and then like I would say the food is not good because she can do a lot better at cooking. I just I was just giving saying that to her so that she just sort of realize okay where she can work on and figure out something like that. But
Ooh.
then she
Ooh.
got really really
Ooh.
pissed at me for saying that,
Ooh.
and then yeah, she was like, "Go prepare food for
That's
yourself
rough.
now."
That's rough. It might, and for her it might be a passion thing, right? She might like to cook, perhaps. I don't know. Does she?
Uh, well, I'm not sure if she likes to cook, but yeah, she likes to give me food that
She
I
likes
like. So
she
she,
likes to take care
puts
of
in
you.
hard.
She likes you to be
Yeah,
happy. And if you're not
yeah, yeah,
happy, then that's upsetting to her somehow. Yeah,
yeah.
I could see that. Yeah, when you said that you aren't very sensitive, that was what was starting to get me away from INFJ, because INFJs are very sensitive people.
Yeah.
Might say too sensitive in a lot of ways. And I'm like your mom. I will cry when I watch things, and I get very emotionally invested in the emotions of fictional characters. Even I will watch reaction videos on YouTube, and I will be emotionally very swept up in the emotions of
Mhm.
those other people, because INFJs externalize their emotions so much, um, and are so
Mhm.
sensitive to the emotions of other people. Uh, Extroverted feelers in general, ESFJs, ENFJs, also very, very emotional, very, very in tune with other people's emotions.
Right. So, like, recently my grandfather passed away, so we went for the funeral, and everybody was crying. My mom was not really close to my grandfather, like from my dad's side,
Hmm.
so was not really close, and yeah, she was like literally crying. Um, Cats and dogs.
Hmm.
So
Hmm.
and I was pretty like calm. I was confused as to what to do, how to behave. I was like
Hmm.
really
Hmm.
wasn't aware, but I could just see my mom crying. So I was trying to
Yeah.
calm yourself down.
Yeah.
I couldn't relate to my mom at that particular place.
Hmm.
So yeah, so that is one thing which I thought that kind of shifts me from being INFJ. But then yeah, there were several things which I could relate. Like I again, when you said that you relate to fictional characters a lot, so I also kind of
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
relate to fictional characters a lot. I don't get emotional about them, but then yeah, there are times when, especially animes, I think animes and the Asian dramas are sort of a way which tend to bring out emotions in you. At least
mm-hmm,
that sort of sense which I get from them.
mm-hmm,
So yeah, I can just feel the kind of emotion they're trying to
mm-hmm,
mm, pull out of me. But then
mm-hmm.
yeah, I don't really get hooked on that particular thing, like hooked on that particular emotion. But I
Yeah,
can feel, like
right,
I can understand.
right.
Uh, There was one thing, and the other thing was, which the personality which I was confused about was ISFP, because
Mm,
if because I yeah, again, I thought I was not organized, and
mm-hmm,
I was not really, so I would have plans for everything, but I feel like I would suck at executing those plans.
mm-hmm.
Like I would probably don't execute it in perfectly proper way as I plan that to be happen.
Right.
So so when I just I started reading the ISFP thing, and then again there were things which I could relate. There were things which I could not relate, such as again the creativity part which they had. So I thought
Mm-hmm.
that probably it's people to people. I'm probably not that creative. That probably doesn't mean that I'm not ISFP. Um,
Right.
so yeah, I again, so I was, and it also has same cognitive functions, right? So I was really unsure
Yeah.
that if I'm using
Yeah. It does.
my,
Mm-hmm. Introverted
if I
feeling.
was confused if I
Yep.
was using introverted feeling more or
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
introverted intuition more.
Yeah. 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 Well, so funny enough, the the one I disqualified before INFJ and INTJ was ISTP, but I was definitely kind of in the ISP as a possible as one of the possible avenues, just because, like you said, there's like ISTPs same cognitive functions INFJ, ISFP same cognitive functions INTJ, so
Oh,
you're kind of in that same like kind of ballpark of they're
yeah.
all NI users, they're all SE users, so uh, so I was in that ballpark, and then we then getting it in a little closer to better a better theory, I guess. But the ISFPs, you should. I've typed a few people that I thought were ISFPs on this channel. So if you want to watch some videos, there's a playlist. There's an ISFP playlist, which you can look at if you're curious about what I
Actually,
think.
I
What
did.
I Yeah.
Yeah, actually, I did see a playlist where I don't remember his name. A person who was wearing a beanie. I think it was typed as ISFP.
Hmm.
I'm not sure. So I did go through that. I couldn't relate to him particularly. So I just
Hmm.
I think after watching that, I probably thought that okay, maybe I should just just have a try with this. It should be
Yeah,
fun.
yeah, yeah. I think
Yeah.
you know how one of the things I've noticed about ISFPs that's a little different than INFJs and INTJs is um, with extroverted sensing, I've noticed there's sort of like a static. That's the best way I can describe it. It's like being on standby mode until something happens to you,
Uh-huh.
and then you
Okay.
kind of activate. And uh,
Oh.
higher extroverted sensing people, that static seems to be louder or something like that. They are they're more caught up in
They're not.
the noise and the static of the sensory details of what's happening right now, whereas people with lower extroverted sensing, they can go into that realm, but they're when they are going there, they're going there to plumb the depths of their intuition, or to talk to their subconscious, or to listen to their subconscious. Um, where
Oh, that makes sense. Yeah.
whereas uh, ISFPs are, I from talking to them, the way they've described it to me is that that listening to the subconscious part is happening much less often, and it's only happening situationally.
Mm-hmm.
So that's
Um,
and that yeah. So if uh, if you have the capacity to to cut through that static so easily, and to be able
mhm.
to wield your intuition so strongly, to learn so many different fields of study, and to visualize information so strongly, then that tells me somebody is stronger in introverted intuition, because they're not caught in the static of the extroverted sensing. They're really able to listen to their subconscious, and to open that third eye and really just listen to what your inner mind is telling you, and to daydream, and to get lost in the
Right.
to jump into the void, you know.
Right. Yeah. 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 Understood. Um, so what I was thinking, yeah, I was just, formulating this, that if I happen to be ISFP, it could be that I might be ISFP, who knows? But I was thinking that if I am an INTJ and I have underdeveloped extroverted thinking, then I would act more like an ISFP. Like I might not be an ISFP, but I might just act like that. I don't know how that works out. So I was just, just going on, what that
Mm-hmm.
extroverted thinking is. And so yeah, at least for me, I think writing out plans and, organizing things with your own hands, planning out, calendars, sorting out your calendars, and scheduling all those things. I think these things come under extroverted thinking, if I'm not wrong. So I do kind of have feel very uncomfortable with writing all those things because I'm sort of lazy. That's the only problem. Otherwise, I think that I absolutely
Yeah.
need to do this, because if I don't plan it out, if I don't write it out, then I'm probably going to forget about the
Right.
event at general. Just like probably I wouldn't be here if you did not remind me. I think a day before, or
Yeah,
so
the
for me,
email.
a day before, because I'm in India,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, email which reminded me that okay, you have a schedule of this. So yeah,
Right.
so I might have,
Uh,
yeah.
well,
So
the
this
the other
happens
thing
to me often.
the other thing is, it's also kind of stage of life matters, and your upbringing, and I mean, the other thing is, like, it's kind of ludicrous that you could boil any person down to one of 16 types, and just call it a day.
No, obviously.
You
Yeah.
know, it's way too reductionist, you know what I mean? So really, I wouldn't get too hung up on stereotypes. And
Mm-hmm.
maybe you are an ISFP. I don't know. I mean, you have to do some reflection, and think about it, and maybe once I post the video, rewatch the video, and
Mm-hmm.
just keep reading, and things like that. You could be an ISFP. I wouldn't rule it out. It's the same cognitive functions, like you said. Um, it's up to you to rule out, I think. But really, I think what it really does come down to is growth. It's just self growth. So you could look at it and say, well, I could be an INTJ, or I could be an ISFP, but either way, I can see that I have a tendency towards extroverted thinking, but maybe it's not what I want it to be. So maybe I'm going to think of a way to hone that, and to get better at that somehow. And maybe it just, maybe the tools that you're using aren't the right ones for you, or maybe you just need to think about it differently, or go read a book, or with extroverted thinkers, they're really great at, like, tribal knowledge, and they're really great at, like, reading what other people think, and and taking that and incorporating that and doing something with that. So
Mm-hmm.
that's going to be a strength to uh, to utilize existing protocols and existing best practices and ways of thinking through research. So
Right.
so lean on your research muscles
No.
when you're not sure
Yeah.
what to do.
I just wanted to ask this, that what would be like definite signs that you're not an ISFP? Not that it really doesn't matter, honestly, but I was actually into I got into MBTI purely for self improvement, self development.
Hmm.
I got to know a lot of perspectives on things when I started reading about MBTI. I don't hold it as a let's say like a Bible, but
Right.
yeah, I think MBTI has I can sort of type other people better than let's say myself. I
Hmm.
can I can just just put in somebody's thought process into what type they might be, and it
Right.
actually turns out to be pretty accurate.
Right.
And it has helped me a lot to deal with a particular people. Especially, I think I have a friend who is an ISFJ who thinks she is an INTJ, but yeah, I think that she is an ISFJ, and
Hmm.
the way when I see the way to approach an ISFJ would be like this, and I try that particular method. That particular method works more. So it
Hmm.
just
Right.
helps me out and to understand others too. So I was saying that if the part about self development, so I was thinking like, okay, maybe I have some certain weak functions. So what should I do about improving them? So yeah, that's how I got into the MBTI thing. So I was
Hmm.
just sort of thinking that if I have my INTJ, then I should work more towards extroverted sensing, or just you utilize my strength in that particular manner.
Hmm. Hmm.
And if I'm an ISFP, that kind of kind of confuses me if I am ISFP, because a lot of things which ISFP likes, I don't like those things,
Yeah.
especially music and
Hmm.
yeah, all those things.
If you were an ISFP, if I thought you were an ISFP, what I would, what I have found from talking to ISFPs is that they wish that they had a stronger adeptness with their introverted intuition. They wish that they could see things further away and that they could cut through the noise of their senses to see the vision of what they're trying to do. And I don't get that impression from you. What I get different kind. I mean, you give me the impression of inferior extroverted sensing, the same thing that I deal with. I hear in you the same things that I deal with, um,
Right,
involving
right, right.
inferior extroverted sensing. It's very familiar to me. Um, so that's what leads me to theorize that
Mm-hmm.
you would be more likely to be INTJ. But that's of course based on my own experience. So of course,
Right.
I can only go off of what I experience and what I've read and people I've talked to. Um, but ISFPs uh, have don't seem to have those kinds of problems that INXJs have with uh, energy conservation. They don't seem to do that
Oh,
same thing because with the
yeah.
higher extroverted sensing preference, it's just not really a problem for them. The problem for them is there's too much static and they're trying to see the vision in their own head and it's not clear enough for them. Not often enough. Once in a while,
Okay,
it's very
okay.
clear to them, and ISFPs can be very intuitive. It's just
Mm.
that that's not their go-to. So because of that, it can get lost, and so they can feel directionless because of that.
Mm-hmm.
They want to have more vision. They want to see where they're going better, but they often feel like they can't. Whereas you might feel Like you know what direction you should be going in, but you feel like you struggle with actually pulling the trigger on that.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly proper way to describe me, because at least I think that I can picture things into future very well, like how this things to is supposed to go, or how what especially what my plans are, like for at least for 10 years I have sorted out my plan, like what I'm supposed to do, and
Mm-hmm.
there's no moving out of those plans. I don't see myself doing anything else aside from that.
Mm-hmm.
My plans might change after 10 years. That is also subject to particular thing which I might decide throughout the 10 years course. But yeah, I can formulate like things into future, or just portray things into future.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I have problem just yeah, just problem with action,
Mm-hmm.
or
Mm-hmm.
staying in, pulling triggers again. Yeah,
Yeah.
right on a perfect time.
Yeah. So I
So
think
that's
that
the only thing
inferior
I think
extroverted
about.
sensing is the
Mm.
key here to this equation. So if you look into that
Uh-huh.
more, that particular phenomenon right there, a little bit more, um, that might be the key that you're looking for, because
Yeah.
INFJs and INTJs just really struggle with that, and that's why I think INFJs and INTJs both would share the desire to be very organized, and
Oh, okay.
you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But then would also have this struggle of fighting against the energy it takes to be organized, and
Right.
and how hard it is to maintain organization and stuff. Um, so
Hmm.
that's my best thought on that, I guess, but I mean, also the very first thing that I started to pick up from you was the introverted intuition. So maybe that's because I'm
Ah,
biased to that, and that's what I notice first, because that's just how I think too. But when
yeah.
I
You can
meet,
relate to it.
yeah, when I meet other people, I can relate to it. So uh,
Hmm.
I didn't. So
Uh,
that's just what I picked up first. I don't pick that up from ISFPs that I meet. Not quite so quickly. I do pick it up.
okay.
I
Right.
do pick it up eventually, but it's not the first thing I notice usually.
Right. 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 Yeah, just one more thing I was unsure about. So again, when I was giving those tests, and I think I don't remember the name of that test particularly, but the object of those tests was to sort out your cognitive functions.
Mhm.
And for some reason I was scored high on TI
Mhm.
than TE, but then although like collectively I was typed as INTJ. So I was just thinking, what is the concrete difference
Yeah.
between TI and TE?
Funny enough, when I first started talking to you, I put a question mark over TI for a little while. Um, uh, well, it's more like a curious thing I've noticed about INTJs in particular, um, is that TI is usually a very dispassionate, logic-driven way of thinking, and
Mm-hmm.
INTJs are good at that. So how do you make sense of that? um, I think that I think what ends up happening is that I think when you use NITE, it can have an effect where it can almost compensate for not preferring to use introverted thinking, but you still get a lot of the benefits of using introverted intuition, but also having, so you get the individuality kind of introverted intuition, but then you get the sort of like logic of extroverted thinking, and so even though it's not, even though you're not, in that sort of like purely dispassionate, rational mindset, that this this introverted intuition wants to be fair and truthful. So
Uh-huh.
there's something there that I think I've noticed that can make it hard to, on first look, hard to distinguish. It's easier for me to tell that somebody is using extroverted thinking when they're not also using introverted intuition. I guess is the way I would put it.
Okay.
But if they're
Yeah.
using
Yeah. Yeah.
introverted intuition and extroverted thinking, it suddenly becomes a little bit harder because you get, like I said, you kind of get a lot of the benefits that you get with using introverted thinking. You get those from using NITE. So I've met and I've talked to INTJs that uh, that seem to rival my ability to use introverted thinking, but they
Mm.
came to their conclusions differently than I did. But they still were able to come to this sort of very almost relentlessly logical point of view. So it's it might just be that that I think I don't have like a really good theory on this yet, but I'm kind of just it's just kind of like a fuzzy theory of mine that I think that I think that we all have our cognitive preferences, but then we use those pairs of functions in various ways to try to counterbalance things that we have to do. So there might be a situation where you might do really well to use introverted thinking, but you are using introverted intuition and extroverted thinking to get to the result that you would have been trying to get to with introverted thinking.
Right. Right.
So
Right.
you might
Right.
have had to go around
Mm.
somehow. You might have had to find your way around to a different way to get there. But maybe you came to the same
Mm.
conclusion that somebody would have come to if they used introverted
Using it.
thinking.
Yeah.
Now that doesn't answer
Right.
your question too well, I guess, but
Yeah.
it just offers some kind of explanation. But the way I would describe it is introverted thinking is much more concerned with the uh, the logical consistency of arguments,
Uh-huh.
the internal logic, than it is with uh, anything to do with effectiveness or even maybe even
Mm.
efficiency. Depends on
Oh.
if the logic is being used to try to be more efficient, I guess. But it it's more concerned with being logically consistent than it is with uh,
Efficiency. Mm.
if the efficiency. Like I said, that's a hard one
Mm.
because I might be trying to be logically consistent and efficient, and or
Right.
come up with the most logically consistent, efficient solution. but
Efficient
but
solution.
I think
Yeah.
extroverted thinking will choose the more efficient solution first, generally, and trust that it's going to be logical.
Uh-huh.
Then they will
All
be
right.
to stop what you're doing. Let's make sure it's logical first before we get to
Mm.
whether it's efficient. So introverted thinkers might spend a lot more time uh, working their way through the logic of something before they ever get to the question of whether it's efficient to do so.
Yeah. It actually makes sense. Yeah. So when I was reading the difference between TE and TI, just sort of said that TE relies on the decisions of several people. If so many people think this to be a fact, then this is a fact. And rather, TI just has their own sort of
That
um,
yeah, maybe
outlook about this.
maybe. I mean
Yeah,
that
yeah,
could.
mm,
I would say that what the way I would put it is I think extroverted thinkers there's one word that I will use here to try to encapsulate this, and that's the word protocol.
Mm-hmm.
Extroverted thinkers
Mm-hmm.
like protocols. They like a list of instructions. Now, they might come up with that themselves. They might actually be the ones writing the list of instructions. Or they might be using the list of instructions that someone else puts together. They're still having to think about whether to use this list of instructions or that one. So it's not like they're just blindly going into it. But it's more like the reason extroverted thinkers can be so successful is because they think about it from that standpoint of efficiency. So they say, if if I'm going to be successful in some way, and there is a proven method that works really well, why wouldn't I do that? Like,
Right.
why would I go reinvent the wheel? And
Right.
it's not about being a sheep or being gullible. It's about being
Mm-hmm.
practical. It's about
Right.
just being practical. And 9 times out of 10, that's probably the best way to go.
Yeah.
but
Right.
but then there's these weirdos over here using a lot of introverted thinking who say practicality be damned. I'm just curious, and I'm gonna come up with my own thing. And introverted thinkers oftentimes needlessly reinvent the wheel. The wheel might not
Well, if you
need.
can save your time.
They
Yeah.
just, yeah, they'll take whatever amount of time it takes, and the wheel might not need to be reinvented. It might actually be a perfectly fine wheel. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so the trade-off there is introverted thinkers may come up with more custom kind of logical solutions than extroverted thinkers, but the trade-off there is the time and kind of maybe perhaps mental expenditure. But for introverted thinkers, it's pretty effortless, is the way I would put it. So that's kind of why they would spend so much time navel gazing
Yeah,
and,
using.
yeah, thinking about
Mm.
things. Um, but from talking to extroverted thinkers that I've been friends with, worked with, and so on, I realized that that me as an introverted thinker, I am much more willing to spend nearly countless amount of time thinking about something that the extroverted thinkers that I know would have thought about it, maybe thoroughly even, but eventually they would
Yeah.
have been satisfied and they moved on. But for whatever
Right.
reason, I was not satisfied by that answer
Right.
or
Right.
whatever,
Right.
and I will just keep thinking about it. And so it really is like an overthinking, kind of an overthinking of everything, and um, just the relentlessness of thinking, relentless thinking to well beyond the point where it was practical.
Hmm. Hmm. Right. Right.
Hope
Hmm.
that helps a
So
little
I
bit.
had, yes, yes, it just gave me a lot of new information. Well, yeah, a different perspective too. Um, yeah, I just, yeah, I didn't know how to way these things function in in practical sense. So I could just, just read and think
Hmm.
of it like, okay, how it's supposed to look like or how. So that's why I was getting confused. I just couldn't understand that why I'm getting scored high on TI. But then, yeah, it made sense when you said that. That's NITE working together.
Hmm.
Mm.
Hmm. But
So
also, it's not
yeah,
like you don't ever do introvert thinking too. To keep that in mind, you know what
yeah,
I mean?
obviously you
Like,
use
everybody does.
all
Yeah,
the functions.
exactly.
Yeah.
Everybody does.
Mm.
So yeah, it's just really about, you're probably right or left-handed or ambidextrous, but doesn't mean you don't use your other hand.
Right.
Of course you do.
Yeah.
And you have two
Yeah.
eyes, but you have a dominant eye that you go to, but you still
Use.
use both eyes. So
Mm.
same way, there are parts of your brain that you probably use a lot more, and there's parts that you use less. It's just how it
Yeah.
is.
Mm. It's
So
true for everything. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So there may be lots of cases where you read something about introverted thinking, you're like, well, I do that. Well, yeah, you may do that. You may very well do that. You probably do
Mm.
that. It's just really a matter of degrees, is all it is. Do
Uh,
you do that more than you
right.
do this, you know? And it's
Right.
hard to know that, really.
Hmm. Also, your thinking function is paired with your feeling function, right? So if
Yeah,
yeah, I'm getting scored high in TI, then I'm also supposed to be, high in extroverted feeling. If
right,
if
right.
if that's what
Or
the yeah,
depends on where it is in the function stack, right? So,
yeah, obviously, yeah,
uh,
sorry, yeah,
yeah. So if you
mm,
are using a lot of introverted thinking, you're using extroverted feeling less.
yeah, right,
So then it becomes less visible, kind of, in a way, to you.
uh-huh. Mm-hmm.
That's a
That
hard
makes
one.
sense, yeah,
That's a really hard one. That's why that's that kind of thing right there is why it's good to have someone to try to get externally look in at you, and try to observe you, because
right,
it's hard to evaluate your own feelings, and how that
mm-hmm.
connects to your logic or whatever. It's like, how do you do that? But I mean,
Mm-hmm.
what I've learned is that you really pretty much have to try to learn, if you're gonna get into this and like try to figure this stuff all out. It's kind of like you have to learn about all 16 of the types, because just because somebody is supposedly using FITE, and an ENTJ is going to do that differently than an ENFP. You know what I mean? So that
Right.
it's not enough
How
to
every cognitive function is working in different stacks.
exactly, not
So
just its
yeah,
location, but how does it fit with every other cognitive function in its location.
right,
So every
yeah,
type then becomes truly unique.
unique.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
So I don't ever look at it
Mm-hmm.
quite so. Let's see. I guess you're familiar with the word Gestalt
Oh no,
theory.
I'm not.
Uh,
No.
it's sort of it's a theory of unification. It's a theory of everything working together, forming something that is greater than its individual parts. And uh, that's how I treat typology with people. Is you
Oh.
might say something, and I might say, "Oh, that's an introverted feeling thing," but that's not enough. And
Mm-hmm.
it's not enough for me to know that's a primary function that you're using, and it's not enough for me to know where it is in the stack. What I have to do is I have to then listen to everything else you say and try to make sense of that too, and then I have to relate it all together and try to form some kind of cohesive theory about how you're using everything together, and
Right, right.
see if
So
I can figure that out.
right. So you just don't need the cogs. You need all the cogs, and you
hmm
have to see how all those cogs are moving
Exactly.
to present it with your.
If I listen to you and you start sounding like you're using introverted thinking, and I just give up at that point and say, "Oh, you're a TI Dom," well,
Mhm.
yeah, then I'm going to mistype you by, if there is such a thing as typing and mistyping, but I'm more likely to, anyways, to miscalculate
Mhm.
uh,
Mhm.
what I'm hearing, you know. So
Right,
I have to use my intuition to try to connect it
right,
all
right.
together, and see if I can find those relationships between the different
Uh-huh.
functions. And then I'm just
Yeah.
disqualifying. I'm just saying, well, you know, you don't sound like you're using a lot of extroverted thinking to me, so you're probably not a dominant extroverted thinker. So that's all I'm
Mm.
doing, is just working my way through, trying to narrow it down
Yeah.
more than
Yeah.
I
Eliminating all the
exactly.
impossibilities. Yeah.
My first theory was that you were an INFJ, actually. So I put a question
Oh.
mark. I put a question mark over INFJ, but that's not enough for me. Like, I'm not satisfied at that point. I have to eliminate everything else. And when I started to do that, I started to think, maybe then at that point that you maybe I thought you were an INTJ. Uh, so yeah, you can't go
Mm-hmm.
off of your first idea necessarily. You might be right, but
Mm.
you have to. That's why I take a full hour and a half when I do this, because it people who make snap judgments like that and try to determine what type they think somebody is in 5 minutes or 10 minutes. It's just, how can you do that? It's so quick.
Yeah,
You don't
human
even
mind
know
is
that person at
complex.
all. Yeah.
Yeah.
So it's like, I need to put you, if I'm the one listening to you, I need to put you in a lot of different situations in your head. I need to like ask you all kinds of different questions to get you out of your own head for a second and listening to me, and then I can get you distracted enough to start acting naturally, and then I
Uh,
can observe you in as natural of a state as I can. So usually the beginning of the
right.
conversation, the first 15 minutes is getting the other person to get out of their own head enough and just acting naturally for me to be able to find out where they're comfortable.
Mm.
Anyways, I'm kind of rambling. I don't know. Did you have any other questions? If you want to consider this the end where I'll open it up to any other questions. I know you've asked a few questions, but like, you can ask any question if you want, and uh, I'm happy to.
Right. Yeah, I was just, thinking, how do you manage to do this, type for free?
It's just a passion
Take out
project.
time. And, okay.
Yeah. I mean, my time, like, I
Mm.
bill my billable time is, I lose money from like the work that I do. In fact, and
Okay.
sometimes I do these videos and I really don't want to do it. um,
Right, right.
Sometimes I'm like, I'm too tired. I don't want to. I really don't feel like doing this because I've thought about having a Patreon and asking people
Mm.
to support me on that.
No, probably a long-term thing.
Yeah, I mean,
I think. Yeah.
yeah, I've also thought about changing the channel name to my name and just starting to
Mhm.
broaden the videos, because I mean, I work. This is my side project. This isn't even my side
Oh,
project. This is my side project. um,
right.
so I've thought about broadening it and putting a lot of my other stuff that I do. There's all kinds of other stuff that I do that never even makes it into this channel because it's not relevant. Um,
Mhm.
but the truth is, it's a drain. It's a drain on me to do it. I do have this website that I don't ever touch anymore, but it's still up, called typologygifts.com. It is a gift recommendation website.
Yeah,
if
I did
if you
that.
buy something on
I
there,
did
it
see.
goes. If you go to Amazon and you buy something, then I get an affiliate, like, small percentage off of the purchase, but it's not even enough
Right.
to cover the cost. It's just enough to cover the cost of the website. So I actually don't make
Okay.
any money on this. But I think,
Mm.
if I had to say, like, why I was motivated to do something like this, is because
Mm.
I felt like a lot of people who get typed out there are getting charged a ton of money and getting kind of ripped off for something that's
That's true.
pretty shitty in a lot of ways, from what I've heard.
Hmm.
And I
Yeah.
thought, if I can kind of commoditize this a little bit and like just make a ton of videos and show
Mm.
people how to do it or how to think about it, then maybe I can increase the quality of what's happening by creating some competition. Um,
Right.
and uh,
Hmm.
but I'm also just curious. I like the idea of being able to talk to a lot of people, even if it exhausts me. I'm
Mm.
curious to meet people. I'm curious to talk about them and pick their brains, and and kind of just dig around in people's heads and see what I find. Like, that's interesting to me. So it is a
Hmm.
curiosity thing for me. I'll
Hmm.
admit, I do start to feel like I'm meeting all the same people over and over again eventually, because we are all the same when you get down to it. I mean, humans are all the same. We all have the same passions and pains
Hmm.
and grief.
Hmm.
And yeah, well, there's like differences, but I mean, like, we are all the same.
Ultimately
So
the same. Yeah.
yeah. um
Mm.
So I don't know if that's a good enough answer for you or not, but that's why I do it,
No,
I guess.
no, I understood. No, I was just thinking what your plan is with this. Like, actually, you can do a lot of things with this. This is, such a, I will feel, the whole MBTI thing or cognitive function thing, you can actually, if you have that, that particular deep knowledge about things, what Carl Jung's theory is about all these things, then you can actually start coaching, and you can probably not, you can type people for free, but you can at least make money out of people, because I think, at least what I
Make money off of what?
make money out of coaching people.
Oh,
Coaching, as in, yeah,
I don't
there
know.
are like
I feel
plenty
weird.
of
I feel
people.
weird telling people what to do. I don't know. I feel weird. I feel weird. I feel weird claiming any sense of authority, uh,
Uh-huh.
because it's not my. I'm a designer. You know what I mean? Like I'm not a
Yeah,
psychologist. Uh,
yeah, yeah.
I do this. The kind of science that I do is like observing people using interfaces that I make, and then me making changes to those interfaces based on my observations.
Right.
That's the science that I do. It's a very practical, user driven
User
kind of,
interface.
yeah.
Yeah.
And so I would feel weird trying to claim some level of authority in some area that's not my field of study. It's just an
Uh-huh.
interest. It's just something fun that I enjoy to do.
Yeah. No,
So,
yeah. Actually, I was just thinking about all of these things, like how, what people can actually do with these information and these things, and just got me thinking that, especially the people are taking a huge amount of money. Like, for example,
mhm.
I just saw a page recently which was taking $150 for just typing a
Right.
person, which
Yeah,
is
I've seen higher than
insane
that.
amount of
I've
money.
seen no, I've seen higher than that. Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so yeah, the insane amount of money. So yeah, I really like the idea of just getting hold of knowledge and typing people for free, because
Mhm.
it's not really that big of a deal. I think, at least, this is what I think.
Yeah.
But what I do think that people really need is to be just self-aware about what
Mhm.
what things they can do with what are their what their strength is, what their weaknesses is, how they can work on their
Mhm.
weaknesses. Just general ideas. I know there are plenty of videos already there on YouTube, but then yeah, I still think that it lacks a lot of competition. I think if not, I'm not just talking about you. I'm just talking about this theory in general. That if anybody with a proper knowledge, not there for just for money sakes, but for to properly propagate that kind of information out there, can yeah, really do something well for the society and
Mhm.
himself as well, with this MBTI and cognitive functions.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah. I mean, I think it's. I think if I could say how I want it to be good for society, is I want to shake people away from the cult of personality, where
Mm-hmm.
where they see some guru who says I'm going to charge $250 to type you, and then that person says I'm an amazing person, you should listen to me, I'm going to tell you how to run your life. That just that
Mm-hmm.
rubs me so many wrong ways.
Mm-hmm.
And so in that sense, I kind of feel like by giving away information for free, I can
Mm-hmm.
fight against, to some degree, fight against the cult of personality, because I don't think that I have
Right.
the kind of personality that uh, I could build a cult following if I wanted to. I could,
Right.
but I bristle against that to a degree, even though I know I have the
Mm-hmm.
skills to do it. I know I could do it. I don't like when people do it.
Right.
I don't like when people do it because it feels dishonest. It feels disingenuous to me to build up this facade and then tell people how to run their lives with this facade that you've built, and
Mm-hmm.
and really just do it all for your kind of like self gratification, so that people can think you're so great. And it's like,
Yeah.
I don't know. I
Mm-hmm.
just don't like that.
Right.
That
Right.
rubs
Right.
me the
Right.
wrong way.
Right.
That
No, you can obviously do
rustles
that, all of
rustles
these
my
things for free.
jimmies. What's that?
I was saying that you can obviously do all of these things for free. It's
Yeah.
just that, when you're doing it for free, it's just not, not motivating enough. That's all that there is.
I don't know. I mean
Other than that,
I believe all information should be free. Honestly, that's a personal belief that I have. I don't think that information should be gated behind money. Um, and
no, it's not about the money. It's about the time you're going to put in to give that sort of information out there,
yeah,
which you could probably use it to something else and probably gain money out of it. But
right,
since you're not doing that, you're doing that something for something. So so in that sense, like I feel that money makes sense when you see it that way. That people are charging for various things, and also you feel that if you're spending money, you're going to get something good out of it.
right.
It's just a
Yeah,
false paradigm, but
exactly.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
Exactly. Well, I think
So,
I'm in a fortunate spot where I'm in a career already. I'm 17 years into my career, so
right.
I'm doing okay, in my career. And it doesn't, you know, making an
Mm.
extra 150 $300 a week isn't really enough money for to it wouldn't be life-changing money for me in any stretch.
Yeah,
So
it's not really about the money. It's about
yeah.
the information or the change which you can probably bring in with this.
Hmm.
Again, this is just a concept. Like this is just a theory in my head that if I had a proper knowledge of cognitive functions, not I don't have it right now, but probably I will by 20 when I am 28. I'm 24 right now, so by I'm 28 or 29, by that time I think that I will be able to have a particular you know at least an information to an extent where I can help people.
Hmm.
At that time, if I decide that I might go into this, I might not charge. I'm not really sure about money. I'm not really, really running behind money. It's just that I think that this particular idea that people are different in a way,
Hmm.
like they might be same, but there's
Same
some
but
sort of
different.
different, and yeah,
Yeah.
so there's some sort of difference. If people understand those differences, then the world becomes simpler and easy. Especially when it comes to education, this is something which
Hmm.
I think that if people understand that there are different kind of children, different with different kind of personalities, if they
Hmm.
are taught in a different way, then they will be able to learn that things with properly. Like for example, for me, I have struggled a lot with education. Tend to forget the information which I have learned, so I have to put in a lot of more time into revising and getting that thing just engraved in my memory. Then but also at the same time, I think that engraving it into my memory is kind of a waste of time, which I
Hmm.
can use it to learn the concept of other things.
Hmm.
So yeah, all these things, I just feel that it's difficult for me to have. Yeah, yeah, so basically, like, academics in at least in my country, is very memory based. So
Hmm.
if you remember it, then you can answer, then you can score well. If you do not remember it, then you don't score well. But I can do a lot better when just you can give me an answer and then I have to come up with a solution, which might be unique in its own way. There's no one right answers. There could be multiple right answers
Hmm.
with those sort of things. Um, so I think if educators have this idea that people are different, and if they categorize them properly,
Hmm.
and just have some different approaches to how people learn things. Like for example, sensors learn things differently. I think cognitive functions and MBTI is all about taking information and how you use that information, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, so just in a similar way, if they understand how people are taking an information differently, they can just make their lives a lot easier and a lot better
Hmm.
from the childhood. Childhood, um, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Mm,
Well, I mean, that's
mm,
definitely if that's the direction you want to go, that's a noble ambition to try to get people in authority to understand that there are different types and to be able to
Yeah,
adapt their style to meet the needs of different types of people. That's definitely an admirable direction. The only thing that I don't have any problem with that, by the way. The thing that I shy away from is any monetization model that monetizes or takes money away from everyday people. I want to take money from rich and give to poor. So if I am thinking about
you're a
how am I
socialist.
going to make money, I want to make money off of the people who have way too much money. I want to take their money. If so,
Right.
so that's part of, like, for example, there are these resume writing services, right? Which is
Hmm.
great. That's great. You want to help people write resumes, but they charge money for so you're charging money to people who don't have jobs. um,
Right.
if anything, make money somewhere else and offer that for free to give that as a service to those people. Um, so
Hmm.
that's of course my point of view.
Perspective.
Everybody's
Yeah.
different, but
Hmm.
just that can help explain to some degree why I'm doing this. But also that's
Right.
my encouragement to you, is if you do go into something like this, is to be thinking about, how can I help the little guy,
Yeah.
and how can I stick it to the big guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Understood.
All right. Well, we this has been
Hmm.
a long call, but I've really enjoyed it. We're at the probably about almost 2 hour mark here. So, thanks for chatting and joining the channel, Rohan. I really appreciate it. And just
Yes. Thanks for
sharing yourself. Thanks for sharing all these things about yourself.
you're welcome, and thanks for helping me type myself and
I hope you
yeah,
feel
all
like,
the insights
yeah.
about cognitive function.
I hope you feel
Yeah.
a little more understood. I don't know. You said nobody
Yeah. Yeah.
understands you, so
Yeah. Yeah. Hmm.
if one person
Yeah.
can understand you, that's good. That's a good start, I guess.
Yeah. I guess. Yeah.
But
No,
but
and
but
that too
also,
on
yeah.
2 hours call.
What's
Hmm.
that? 2 hour call.
Yeah,
Yeah,
that
exactly.
too. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not that big of a deal if nobody understands you. You know what I mean? I used to get hung up on that myself, but
Mhm. Yeah, I do it fairly well with that particular thing. It's just that, especially when things, people are really close and then you end up saying something and then, it's that we whole havoc is created out of that particular thing, which is probably meaningless and just based on that
mhm.
particular thing that this person is not like that.
Yeah.
I just think that if they understand me,
Mhm.
then things would have been a lot easier for me
Right.
and for them also. Yeah.
Right.
That, that's all.
That's a hard one. That's a real
Mm.
hard one.
Yeah.
Because look how complicated this
Yeah.
stuff is. even
Yes.
for even for people who have natural aptitude to learn it, it's still complicated.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
I'm not saying it's hopeless, but my expectations are rock bottom.
Yeah. I have zero expectations too.
Yeah.
Mm. Mm.
That's the only way I think you can get through it. It's just to have no expectations and just live your
Yeah.
life and enjoy one day at a time.
Yeah.
And soak as much enjoyment out as you can out of life every single day.
Mm. Thank you for this.
Yeah, for sure, Rohan. Well, have a
Mm.
good night, and well, I guess it might be daytime there. I'm not sure, but
Yeah, it's like, mm.
have a good day. It's nighttime here. It's 10 p.m. here. So
Right.
thanks a lot, and we'll see you on the channel. I'll post the video probably in like not next week, but like the week after. I think is what the schedule will probably end up being. So
Oh, all right.
there's gonna be two
Yeah,
video.
I
There's gonna
subscribe
be
you anyway.
two parts of one
Mm.
video coming out next week, and then yours is the next one after that. So
Okay. Okay. Okay.
all
All
right.
right.
Take
Have
care.
a good night.
Yep. Have a good night. See ya.
Yeah.
To our
See
friends
ya.
at home, like and subscribe, and do all the YouTube things, and we'll see you in the next video.
Okay.
Peace out.